Just the chazer of it. So we said last week that the ava is based on giving, and that if you give to somebody, you come to love that person. If you invest in anything, you come to love that thing, not just a person, but even a pet or an inanimate object. If you invest in it, and he brought the example from the Torah last week of where the three things where you go back from waging war, you can stay home, which are if you planted a vineyard, built a house, or got married. All these are cases in which you invest in an inanimate object, the house, in a plant, and in a human being. So these are all things which, because you invested in them, it would be very unfulfilling. Let's say you feel unfulfilled if you went out to war and you were not able to fulfill your relationship with these things, and your fighting in the war would suffer as a result. You wouldn't be able to fight properly. So then you're allowed to go back from the war for these things. And then we said that a person is supposed to, if a person has a choice to help a person who's their friend, unload an animal to prevent it from suffering, or load the animal of his enemy to help that person, even though unloading the animal has a value of tsar b'alei chaim, you're supposed to pick to help the person whom you don't have a relationship with in order to build a relationship with that person. Okay, now we're up to Parakeh. He's bar Parakeh Godem. It became clear in the previous parak. In every person there is a spark of the power of giving. Zeh. And that means that as much as a person becomes a taker, as much as a person becomes somebody who wants to take out of this world whatever he can get, everybody, as I said before, everybody has a spark of the power of Nesina, which is still there, but dormant, submerged within that person somewhere deep inside. If that power, that spark of giving was destroyed, the world would be desolate. People never get married, and people never have children. That this spark is never going to be taken away from people. However, since those people have very little of this power of Nesina, their aspect of giving, so they'll choose to selectively to give to those who find favor in their eyes. To them they will give and they will do good. They'll love those people. These people they consider part and parcel of themselves. Mishpachtam, their families, Kroveim, their relatives, Re'eim, their friends, Chavreim, and their acquaintances. But other people, they're going to be consider them as foreigners and strangers. They'll try and take as much as they can from those people. They'll compete with them. They'll grab from them everything they can. So that's what people do. That's human nature. Human nature is to select a circle of people to whom you want to give, and to give to those people, and you see everybody else as somebody to take advantage of or to exploit, certainly not somebody who you love, right? So, Adam, a person should look at this carefully. We said if you give to somebody, you come to love that person. You also have a portion in him. Love, and you connect to him. Come words, he said, and then a person will understand. He'll figure out and understand. That he figured for the other person he considered to be a stranger who because it didn't give to him yet. It didn't do a favor for him yet. If you start doing good to all those people you find, then you feel that everybody's your relative. Everybody's somebody you love. And you have a portion of all these people. In all of them you extended yourself. So basically, the idea is, and a very, very important idea, which is that After Recha Kamocha means don't love somebody in the abstract, and you don't, according to Rav Dessler, you don't step back and say, okay, let's see what milas this person has. Let's see, are they beautiful? Are they handsome? Are they smart? Are they nice? And that way you come to love them, because then, most people don't necessarily fall into those categories. A lot of people are ugly and dumb. But you love people if you give to those people, regardless of how they look, how they act, because you started giving to them. And that's why most parents love their children, even their children are utter and total brats, because they spent their lives giving to their children. So therefore they're investing in their children. It doesn't matter the fact that their children are not model citizens. And this is true about anybody. If it's possible to come to love somebody, even if somebody is vile and disgusting, if you can bring yourself to give to that person, to invest in yourself in that person. So loving somebody else is an active, not a passive venture. And when we talk about in English falling in love, says according to Rav Dessler, it's a very foreign concept. To fall in love would mean it's totally passive. Just happens to you. It doesn't work that way. And we know it doesn't work that way. Loving means to give, to actively invest in a relationship. And he's going to expand that even more in the next chapter. But in the meantime, if you want to come to love somebody, you come to give to them. It says about Hashem, as Hashem you have, Hashem yochiach. If Hashem loves somebody, he rebukes that person. He tells him when he's doing wrong. If you don't love somebody, then you're not going to invest in that person, right? If you love somebody, then you're going to invest in that person. Investing sometimes means telling them what they're doing is wrong. That's part and parcel of investing. So therefore, Kodesh Baruch Hu says, you know what? If you think that loving means not criticizing, to a wife it does. But if you think about loving means not criticizing, then you're wrong. Because criticizing means I'm giving of myself to you.
I mean, nowadays, the concept of love, I believe, was messed up by Hollywood. Because not everybody believes, there's two ways to love somebody. Like, there's a spark, there's a crazy chemistry. Right. Like, you open up the door for the first time and fireworks go off. Right. That's one time. And then the falling in love is another one what they created, where it's like, that's how it is.
Right. But the problem is that even before Hollywood, nobody went and taught people that love is about giving. Rav Dessler is coming on. It's a radical thing here Rav Dessler is doing, right? Nobody ever talks about love as giving, even without Hollywood, even in novels written before there was Hollywood.
It's give and take. That's what love is.
Yes, but he's saying it's give.
Correct.
Give. Not take is not as important. Right. Or it's not, sometimes it's not important at all. Okay, so some of you merits getting to this very high level. According to him, the Torah's mitzvah is very clear. Now, of course, everybody goes to town on this mitzvah. How can you love your friend as yourself? And of course, the Ramban already says, don't take it literally, right? It's not as much as yourself. And we saw in Rav Shimon that Rav Shimon says, well, it means that you expand your sense of self to include other people. Says Rav Dessler, no, according to what I'm saying, I have a different interpretation, which is very simple. If you invest in another person, he becomes kamocha. He becomes like you. And therefore, you love them, just like you love yourself.
That could be at a different level. Meaning you love him, but maybe not as much as I love myself.
That may be. But it's because...
falls in that category.
Right,
now.
Yes, yeah.
Also, if love is about giving, how can you love yourself?
Right? Beats me. But that's what he's saying. Now, Rav Dessler is actually addressing that. He's saying, doesn't mean love him as yourself, as you love yourself, but love him because he's a part of yourself.
No, but my father used to always tell us, like, the house of means you have to love your neighbor like you love yourself.
Right, but that's not what that's saying.
I understand that, but first of all, you have to love yourself in order to love your neighbor. In order to love your friend, you have to love yourself first.
No.
Why? Then you have to love kamocha.
So the way he's interpreting means because he is kamocha. Love him because he's just like he's like extension of you.
Like myself.
That doesn't. It's still you give to yourself all the time, right? Even if you can't stand yourself, you still give to yourself. Otherwise, you wouldn't be alive. So therefore, keep giving to your friend as well. That's the definition of ahava in this sense, and in a practical sense.
Where's the trigger? Is it I should love him because he's myself? Or is it once I love him, therefore...
No, first way.
First way.
Okay. Kamocha b'lishum hefresh, without a distinction. Kamocha mamish, the Shem says. Kim navshcha timtza asher tavhu echad inchem. Because in your soul you'll find that you and he are one. Tagir shagasha bura kihu l'cha kamocha. And you'll feel with clarity that he is like you. He is to you like yourself. Okay, Parak Vav is perhaps the most important parak in the entire Kuntres. Bava Samin. This is a little chance in terms of sexual love. Ava Samin, sexual love, Udavar Pele B'Kochas HaNefesh. This is an astonishing aspect of the powers of the soul. L'chora Yonireh, it would seem, Ki Be'emes Ein Tochen Mamashi Bavazu, that there's no substance to this love. Ella Shi Eitza Mukusha Boris Baruch. It's just a profound idea of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. L'man Kiyum Ha'olam, to sustain the world. Right? He gave people sexual desire because the only way in which the world will exist is if the sexuality takes place. Not just by human beings, by plants. I mean, everything which procreates based on sexuality. There's a craving for sexuality, just like there's a craving for food, right? We need to have a craving for food, otherwise we wouldn't eat. We need to have a craving for sexuality, otherwise we wouldn't have children, wouldn't have a next generation. But that's a very, very far step from understanding what it's really about. Everybody has a taiva. Everybody has lust. We have that desire. People also have a desire to have children. It's enough to have lust and to have a desire to have children. So why is there this? Why is sexuality linked to love? Now, of course, when Rav Dessler was writing this, he could not have any appreciation of what would happen in the next 70 years or so to Western society, in which sexuality and love have nothing to do with each other anymore. But when Rav Dessler was writing this, the assumption was that they're intimately connected, right? The idea of sexuality was not divorced from love, it was part and parcel of love. So how does it work? The love between the sexes. For Shamati Omrim, so I heard that people say, Ki avazu toledas hakar satov, that this love between a man and a woman is derived from gratitude. Asher yodu al dadis, they both thank each other. Al dvar ezram ze el zel maleis chok tivam, because they're assisting each other to fulfill the drives of their nature. So in other words, the love between a man and a woman is basically an expanded form of the trait of hakar satov. I help her, she helps me. We're both thankful to each other for being able to cooperate on this great venture, which has to do with fulfilling ourselves and fulfilling our needs. But that's a mistake. There are many people who are not grateful, who have who don't like thanking other people. You don't see that they lack the concept of love between man and woman. There certainly exists. Even people are very, very much fall short in thanking other people and being grateful to other people. There's a love between themselves and their spouses, right? Or themselves and their significant others, right? You can have no gratitude whatsoever for the fact that somebody sets up a kiddush every Shabbos and still love your wife, right? There are people like that. So I hope they're all thankful to you. So how does it work?
No love.
So, okay, Nomar. So therefore we have to say, it comes from their fulfilling each other, completing each other. Hashem put this in their nature. So Chazal say, Kosh eino isha, eino adam shalem. If a person doesn't have a wife, is not a complete person. It works the other way as well. When a person is by himself, he's lacking. Ki lo yuchal malei tafkido. He can't fulfill his mission and purpose in life. Akem biyosam nosnim, because they give hashloma zeh lezeh. Each one gives a perfection to the other person. Yavu zeh ezeh. Karen Sheni's bazbar. So it's a very big chiddush, which he says. The fact that the husband and wife, the man and woman, love each other has to do with the fact that they're giving each other what the other needs. Years ago, when I was in graduate school, college, so this is like the prehistory. Like when I was in graduate school for counseling, they still taught us that homosexuality is a mental disease. So this is like a different generation altogether.
I would edit that off, by the way.
Huh?
I would edit that off.
I'm not saying it's correct. I'm just saying that's what they taught us. So the
you never know who gets it.
right. So I'm not saying it actually is. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's whatever it is. But BSMA, that was in our textbook. The textbook, Advanced Techniques of Counseling, was how to cure somebody of that syndrome. Anyway, but so also they taught us an idea by a fellow named, I think his name was Robert Levinson, a Harvard professor. He said that every man needs a special woman, and that special woman is the person who brings that person, believes in that person, believes in the man. Supports the man, wants to see the man accomplish, and is devoted to that man. He said at that time, and that's why I said it's from a different generation, that women don't need a special man. Men need a special woman. Okay, so I don't think that would fly today. I don't think it's necessarily true anymore, right? Back then, right, until it was in the early 80s, so I assume the book was written in the 70s. So it's still possible to say that, a woman's supposed to be a housewife and, assist her husband. But it doesn't work that way anymore. So, and that's the point. The point is, what Levinson, I think that was his name, defined as a special woman as a woman who's giving to her husband what her husband needs in order to succeed. And the husband is supposed to give his wife also. But back then it was different expectations, but certainly today the expectations have similarity, what his wife needs in order that she should succeed. So each one loves the other because they're investing in the other. They're giving the other what that person needs in order for them to be what they're supposed to be in this world. That's the giving. And then he says, because somebody who gives comes to love. Zeu asher ba'avasam, that is in their love, koshi pasam, all their aspiration, hulitein lashpia nachas oneg zelazeh, is to give and to flow with tranquility and pleasure to each other. But with this we can explain something also, which is astonishing. Why most times this love does not last. Romantic love doesn't last. We speak of Hollywood, right? Every Hollywood movie ends when they get married, right? Now they don't have to get married anymore. But when they used to have to get married, it ends to get married because basically the assumption is romantic love is up to the altar, and then after the altar, it's all over, right? So therefore,
they lived happy ever after.
Right?
Yeah.
Happy ever after.
Yeah. So it never focuses on romantic love after marriage. It's always the quest to get married. So I'm not saying there are exceptions, obviously, but you understand. And there are a lot of we see in society that even people who were tremendously in love, a lot of engaged couples, if not all engaged couples, saying the love which they're experiencing for each other is a love which no couple has ever experienced before in the history of humanity. That is the it happens to see. Everybody thinks that their love is unique, totally unique, and that's such amazing thing. Which how can anybody else ever have had? And but that does not necessarily last. And the question is, why doesn't it last?
First year of marriage.
What?
And then comes the first year of marriage.
Yeah. So since I once heard years ago, and there's truth to a certain extent, which is but in contradistinction to that, is that in Eretz Yisrael, the first year of marriage is the best. And then it's all downhill. In Chutz La'aretz, it's the opposite. First year marriage is the roughest, and then it gets better. Now,
Why?
that's a stereotype, and it has to do with that just like this 30, 40 years ago, whatever it was. Probably because life in Israel, as you get older, it gets much rougher. You have to financially. Whereas in America, financially, it gets better usually the way you get older. So because they have to buy apartments for their children, stuff like that. So it becomes very rough. I don't know if it's true anymore, but that was interesting perspective if and when it was true. So, but be as it may. So he says, so why does romantic love not last? For most times, he says, it doesn't last. So it's simple. Most people are takers, not givers. Right? We're trying to become givers, but the reality is most people are takers. So, when they have the powerful drive of nature, to have children, they were giving and they were loving. But very quickly, when nature is already subsides, I don't think it's just the nature of having kids. I think the sexual attraction after Shana Rishona is very, very powerful, and afterwards it dissipates, especially once you have kids. It gets less and less, and therefore so each person in marriage now reverts to form and looks at marriage as what am I getting out of the marriage? I put in so much, I'm not getting what I should get. And this is everybody. I shouldn't say everybody. Unless you're a big tzaddik, you fall into this at least from time to time. Most people, unless you tell me with that, and you're going to be lying to me. If you tell me that you always take out the garbage without resenting it, ever, then you're a tremendous tzaddik, and I don't believe you for a moment. But most people, even they have to take out the garbage. What are you doing for me in return? So that's that. I feel like that's
with every partnership, though, even a business partnership. You always feel that you're doing everything, the other person doing nothing.
Yeah, but in marriage it shouldn't be that way. In business partnership it doesn't matter so much. In marriage it does. In other words, in marriage you're supposed to feel it's good if I'm doing everything, which is a very difficult thing for most people to feel. That's what he's saying. Most people revert to form. They say, okay, I invested a lot. Let's see my returns on this. Okay, so
I thought we just said though that loving is giving.
That's what he said.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but most people don't look at it that way.
Oh.
Most people, at least over time, it fades from giving to what's in it for me. How can I take out of this relationship? You're not giving to me enough.
For the fact that I give.
Could the giving get sort of burnt out by the lack of receiving?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it could, but that's the point. In other words, so that's why.
But still, you're not supposed to behave that way.
Right.
Of course, there's many natural reasons why this can happen. Right? I'm not saying that it's going to.
Our original
Taking out the
premise
garbage
that love is giving is obviously not an absolute, because otherwise people wouldn't then view it this way.
Okay.
Right. Our original statement was that love is giving. Obviously that's not an absolute, or people would never feel this way where they feel that they're giving, but they need some take also.
No, because that's what he's saying, over time, as the grip of the infatuation and the lessons, because in every time you have a couple, at the beginning there's love and infatuation, right? And the infatuation, to a large extent, drives the giving, which is the loving. As infatuation fades over time, so then the giving also fades over time, because the impetus for it, the drive for it, is diminished. And then a person is much more likely to look at what I can get out of this. So then, at that point, if a person doesn't cognitively, thank you, cognitively think, you know what, this is the wrong attitude, I still have to give, and if I give, I love, if I'm not going to give, I'm not going to love, then a person's just going to fall into this pit of, I did enough. Well, I did the carpool today, you do the carpool tomorrow. Now, of course, that's fair, but so what? Right. Everybody, yeah. So that's
So that's how it should technically be in order to be equal givers.
No, that's what he's saying. It's not about equal givers.
That's not a competition.
Your job is to be giving.
Yeah.
That's it. As the in the relationship, now again, her job is the same thing. If she wants to love you, her job is to be giving too. But your job is to be giving.
You have to learn this together with your wife. That way, each of you knows what you're supposed to be doing. Okay, so send
this to me. I'm gonna send it to her.
Okay, so
I like some stuff.
so he says, "Gam lo yagish batzma."
So he's saying indefinitely, no matter what, you still always have to be.
Yes, but I didn't get that part. He's going to say it's late, so I'm going to get to it next week. But yes, that's what he's going to say in the next part of the chapter.
That you indefinitely must always be giving. Don't expect anything.
Yeah, but don't let. Right. Yes, he's going to say that. Okay. You're not going to show up next week. So he says, "Gam heim lo yagish batzmam." They're not going to feel themselves as a shah sheichlifu ba'asem dasam. They won't even feel when they changed from giving to taking in their relationship. Tachas she'iskashut chilios nosnim. Since instead of how they joined together at the beginning to be givers, now they're takers. Everybody will demand mereu from the other to fulfill the obligations which they are obligated to which the other side obligated him or herself to them. So says how you gonna have love if everybody's looking out to get what they want to take from this relationship. Okay, so now I will stop here for today. We'll come back to it next week. We'll see what he says, and obviously it's along the lines of giving and giving and giving as to how to maintain love over time. And what?
It's the same thing with your kids. It's the same way you have the relationship with your kids. You're not really
different. They're incapable.
Yeah, but
they're not though.
They are.
To an extent, you could say that about your wife.
Sure,
too.
until they're a few years old.
No,
At that point, you're already way too invested.
Okay, but that's the point. That's the level you're supposed to get with your
You
wife.
don't
Also.
come across your wife until she's an adult.
Right, makes it more difficult.
Makes it more
What
difficult.
I'm saying,
Yeah.
to viewing at it at that point of the human, eyesight.
It's not easy. He's not saying it's easy.
I'm just saying.
It's extremely hard, but that's what he's saying. In other words,
It has to be hard. That's what he's bringing into the safe.
So long as this is designed for both.
Yeah.
Ravova says Ravova wrote a very small pamphlet about marriage, and he said, you know what? He says the Torah Chazal say that marriage is like rechaim b'tzavor. It's like a millstone around your neck. So what does that mean? It means don't think for one moment throughout your marriage that marriage is not a yoke on you, an awl. It's always an awl. As long as you're married, it's an awl, and you can never forget it. You should be as aware of it as having a millstone around your neck. In other words, yes, at some point you think, okay, from now on we can coast. It's no coasting. No one coasts, it falls apart. A millstone, a heavy stone. You know, like when the mill where they used to crush grain and stuff.
They call it a ball and chain.
Right? Ball and chain is also a good metaphor. It's fine. But around the neck, it's like the animal has a yoke on its neck, so it's supposed to be that.
It's an everyday battle. That's what it is.
Yeah.
The Omal Chushamayim, same concept.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Okay.
I